My name is Ken, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. My older brother David was an only child for 6 years. Then I came along. My arrival was followed in the next few years by 2 more brothers and 1 sister. Still, David had always been his own birth cohort within our family. He left Long Island to go to school at the University of Pittsburgh when I was 11 years old, and he never lived in our house again. Still, he would remain my big brother, and the impression he left in those 11 years remains with me. Always. David passed away a few weeks ago at the age of 77, right around midnight at the end of National Siblings Day, surrounded by loving family. David had been sick for quite a while. He had advanced chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, due to 6 decades of heavy cigarette smoking. He had been in and out of the hospital quite a bit over the past few years for this and other complaints. And a couple of weeks ago, I drove to central Pennsylvania to visit him and his family, since it was obvious that we didn't likely have much longer. The house where we grew up on Long Island was a post-war Cape Cod-style tract house in a town called Hicksville. I didn't name it. It was originally a 2-bedroom house, but as more children were added to the mix, dormers were built on the 2nd floor and new bedrooms were fabricated. And for a while, David and I shared a bedroom. I had my shelf of books, mainly late 19th and early 20th century science fiction by Jules Verne and H.G. Wells. And David had his own stash of books, mostly hidden away so Mom couldn't see them. The ones I got to look at were his Mickey Spillane novels. Now, Mickey Spillane was a pulp detective writer whose plots involved a lot of sex and violence. I never really made it past the scandalous covers of those paperbacks, which always featured a pulchritudinous young woman who always looked surprised that her blouse was just a bit too small for what she had to offer. When David saw that I found the books, he said, "Look, just don't tell Mom." I never did. When we were visiting recently, though, David told me that he had another stash of books that I never did find. They were called The Man from ORGY. A series of raunchy spy thrillers whose title was a parody of the TV spy series The Man from U.N.C.L.E. He told me that Mom did eventually find one of those books, and that she was such an innocent that she showed it to her neighbor Pam Warburton, who expressed shock and explained to her what this book was all about. Mom was not pleased. I remember once when I was very young, David and his friend Mitchell put on a magic show in our backyard for the other kids in the neighborhood. He also wanted to be a doctor when he was a kid, so Mom got a huge white terry cloth towel and used a simplicity pattern and her Singer sewing machine to create a white doctor's smock for him to wear in the summer by our above-ground backyard pool. Actually, he ended up going to law school, so I inherited the smock, the profession, and a flair for the theatrical. David and I haven't lived in the same city or even the same state for 6 decades. So I know he's gone. It's not like I've seen him every day. It's hard to register such a loss, even such a loss as this, under these circumstances. And it's going to take some time to get used to now being the senior member of the Ken and Mary Howell branch of our family. I know I will, because even when David has not been here, he's always been there, somewhere. And I can always reach out to him as his oldest little brother to occasionally see how things were going. And I'm sure he'll turn up in a dream or through some other sign, because that's how things work in our family. So one last story. After our mom died in 2010, we put the house on Long Island up for sale. Mom had detailed various things in her will about how the estate would be split up, and I decided to meet with each of my siblings individually to check in and see how that was sitting with them. I made it a grand tour road trip. I drove to visit my sister Kathy in New Jersey and my brothers Stephen and Jimmy on Long Island, and then I headed back to New Jersey before heading west for St. Louis and home. I called David from Kathy's house on a Saturday morning to say that I would be driving west that day and that I would probably be in his neck of the woods by early afternoon. I asked if I could stop by and have a conversation with him about the house. He said, "Actually, I'm driving Jackie, that's his youngest daughter, to Pittsburgh for a bowling tournament tonight. We're leaving about that time." Well, I suggested, I could just plan on spending the night in Pittsburgh and meet you both at the bowling tournament. He said, the thing is, Jackie doesn't really like spectators. I thought that was odd because this was, after all, a tournament. Nevertheless, I said, okay, well, we'll just talk on the phone later. I left Kathy's house, taking the I-78 west, I-81 west, south rather, and I got on the Pennsylvania Turnpike just west of Harrisburg. Soon after getting on the turnpike, I decided to make a stop at the Blue Mountain Service Plaza. As I was getting out of the car, I heard someone say, Kenny? I looked up, and 2 cars away, David and Jackie, who had also just stopped for a break. As we walked together toward the plaza building to have our conversation and close this loop, I surreptitiously cast my eyes heavenward and asked, Mom? This is you, right? So, that's how things work in our family. I look forward to seeing all those who are still with us, marveling at the time that has flown, as we feel the presence of those who are no longer in this world, but live in our hearts, always.